Okay, hi everybody. It's so great to see everyone here in support of World Doula Week, this very, very important topic. We could not be more happy to be doing this in sponsors with Boppy. And we thank you so much, Boppy, for bringing these important experts to your viewers and drawing awareness around World Doula Week. We are honored to be working with such an iconic brand. When I think about breastfeeding pillows and pregnancy pillows, I think about Boppy. So thank you so much again, Boppy, for taking the time to educate your viewers on doulas and highlight this very important week. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our World Doula Week broadcast with Boppy. We are so honored to be here. A big thank you to Boppy for bringing these important experts to their viewers and building awareness around World Doula Week. We are honored to be working with such an iconic brand. When I think about breastfeeding pillows and pregnancy pillows, I instantly think of Boppy and all the things that they've done for women around the world and the experts and providers that work with these women to help bring these great little babies into the world. So thank you so much, Boppy, for taking the time to educate your viewers on such an important topic. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Starling. I am the Chief of Staff here at Tot Squad, and first and foremost, the mom to two little boys, a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. To say my first experience in motherhood was easy would be a complete lie. So I'm going to be fully transparent and say it was quite the transition for me. My first time around while I was recovering from a C-section, I suffered from mastitis twice in 6 weeks, and my breastfeeding journey was not what I saw on Instagram. And due to all of this, I've suffered really poorly with postpartum anxiety. But the good news is I learned from my first, and I spoke to moms in my network and providers in my network, and my husband and I saved with our second child to get a doula. And to say it was life-changing is an understatement. We often say it's the best money we've ever spent. And for all the parents out there, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say it saved our sanity. So we are so grateful to be here and be talking about this important topic. I want to share a little bit about what Tot Squad is before I introduce our experts that are here. Tot Squad's on a mission to normalize parents asking for support. We are a marketplace that connects parents to trusted and provided experts in the categories of lactation, feeding, sleep, diet, and nutrition. And please be sure to register for our giveaway by clicking register in the Zoom link. So it is my greatest pleasure to now introduce Alyssa. I would love for Alyssa to tell us a little bit about herself, and then we will move over and introduce Aubrey.
Hey there, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Alyssa Veneklase. I am a certified elite postpartum and infant care doula. I'm also a newborn care specialist, a certified sleep consultant, and I co-own Gold Coast Doulas, which is a doula agency in West Michigan. I co-founded the Becoming a Mother online course, and I'm co-host of Ask the Doulas podcast.
Great, Alyssa. Thank you so much for being here today. And now, Aubrey, over to you.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Phelps. I'm a registered dietitian and specialize in pediatrics and pregnancy health, as well as a certified lactation counselor and registered kangaroula. I'm also a mom of 3 and expecting our 4th. So I have been through much of this myself.
So I know you both can relate to some of the stories I shared, and they probably bring back many memories with clients or even with your own personal experiences. A little bit about World Doula Week. It was actually started on March 22nd, 2011 in Israel. And now this week, it's done to empower all doulas around the world to help women improve their social, emotional stances on motherhood and parenting. And so that is really the reason why Boppy has chosen to highlight this very important subject. So let's kick off. I'd like to run this a little bit like a conversation and a chat. I'd love to hear from Alyssa. Alyssa, what is a doula? And what do they do?
Yeah, so a birth doula, think about a birth doula as a person who supports your family throughout pregnancy, labor, delivery, and then typically for a little while right after birth in the hospital or home. They offer information, resources, physical support during labor, such as comfort measures, maybe massage if that's what mom wants, pressure, position changes. And then they support the partner as well, sometimes as much as the birthing person, which sometimes families don't realize. Like you said, your husband was really on board after the fact. Dads are often our biggest cheerleaders after a birth. And then one thing to note is most birth doulas will attend births in hospitals too, not just a home. So that's a common misconception that birth doulas only work in the home. And then there's the whole postpartum aspect of it. So a postpartum doula works in the home with the family after they have their baby, and they'll offer emotional support, information, resources, newborn care, and tips. Oftentimes will help you set up a system in your home, something that works for you and your family, help with organization, maybe do some meal prep or light housekeeping. And then many doulas will offer daytime and overnight care. So it helps mom and dad optimize their sleep. And then I always like to think of a postpartum doula as if your best friend could come over and help you with newborn care, but that friend just happens to be trained and certified in newborn care, can offer you evidence-based sleep tips, give you emotional support, and all of this without judgment to help you kind of navigate this thing the way you need it.
Yeah, that's great. I would say that's the level of experience and love I got. It's almost like having your mom there with you. I mean, like someone who is just a full support network for you. And I love what you said, you address like physically, emotionally, all around. And I would say that that's definitely like the love that doulas give to the parents that they're with.
Yeah.
Where do I find a doula? Do I just Google, or how would I find you?
So word of mouth, I would say, is always the best. If you have a friend or a family member, and then for sure your healthcare provider, if your doula or if your midwife or OB suggests a doula, start there. Of course, you can Google doula near me, right? Doulamatch.net is another good place to find doulas. And I believe Tot Squad, you guys are going to have some eventually, right?
We are.
And I would just say start looking right away. The earlier, the better, because doulas do book up really quickly. So sometimes after like the 11 week mark is typically good to start looking.
Yeah. I mean, I can completely relate to that. Like ours was through word of mouth. We actually had signed someone else up and then she was unable to do it. So the other doula recommended another doula. So it was great for us that it worked that way. And that just shows the strength of like the mom parent word of mouth, and then also like the provider word of mouth.
Yeah. With that said, though, one more thing, if you are like in that 36 week, you're like in the home stretch and you just realize you want one, it's not too late. You can still try to find one. Oftentimes doulas might be able to fit you in.
And how do I know, how do I know who is the right doula for me? And do I include my birthing partner, my partner in the process? What is the best way to approach it?
So I would start by making sure you find a doula that's trained through a reputable organization and fully certified. You want somebody who's going to be on your team, that the healthcare professionals you are working with, they can be on that team cohesively. And then obviously once Tot Squad has them, you'll know they're vetted because you found them on Tot Squad. But find one that fits with your personality, your goals, if it's a postpartum doula, your parenting style, and then yes, absolutely involve your partner. Sometimes they seem really hesitant, especially in birth, because they think that a doula might replace them when really they just enhance their role in this whole process. So like I mentioned before, they're often our biggest advocates once they've experienced what the support of a doula can do. So absolutely involve them.
Okay. And is it expensive? Does insurance cover it? I talked a little bit about us being able to financially plan for one because it was helpful for us to just do it, to be prepared. So would you talk a little bit about the costs around?
Sure. So a lot of HSA and FSA plans will actually cover doula support. So if you have a flex or health savings account, I would call and find out if yours does. Some states, there's only a few that actually cover birth doulas under Medicaid. So if you're in one of those states, you can look into that more too. But right now overall general insurance doesn't cover doulas, but I'm going to say yet. We're working on that. If you do have questions about your plan, just make sure you call and discuss the details of your specific plan. You may find out that maybe a doula isn't covered, but maybe other things like classes or lactation support, that kind of stuff is oftentimes covered. And then costs can really vary based on where you live and the experience level of the doula. Be wary of cheap or low cost doulas. Do your research, find out the going rate in your area. Again, ask for referrals, but a birth doula could be, anywhere in the 1,000 to 2,000 range. And then postpartum doulas are typically per hour. So that would be something to plan ahead for too.
Yep, that's great. I think it's also, like you said, it's so great to call your insurance provider and find out what they actually provide. I know for a lot of moms, they will provide pumps,
Right.
breast pumps, and other, like you said, they'll cover classes, some will cover doulas. So it's all about being educated, I think, and
Right.
just learning as much as you can.
Right.
So now let's get down to the most important part. What are the benefits of using a doula?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So there's so many studies being done because we're just learning more and more the benefits of this continuous support of a doula. So some of, there's a reduction in interventions, less likelihood of a cesarean, a big percent, like 33%. Families who do though, let's say you have your plan kind of goes awry, you end up with an unplanned cesarean or, what you might consider a traumatic birth experience. Those families have increased satisfaction with their birth outcome because they had a doula there who is offering their continuous support throughout this process and educating them before. Also better breastfeeding rates, lower premature births, overall better mental health outcomes. I've literally have like a 10-page document on all the statistics and benefits of a doula, but there are so many.
Yeah. From my first experience to my second, it was like night and day. And I contribute a lot of that to my experience of having that great support from a doula. And so I've definitely experienced the benefits. I wish I did it the first time around. But I feel lucky that I've learned and I've been able to be educated and talk to other parents and find out more about it. So I guess, what is the difference between a doula and a midwife? Because I think we get a lot of these questions in Tot Squad a lot, and we're not experts, in these two areas. So could you talk to our audience about that?
It is probably the most common question that we get. So doulas are not medical. We'll support your emotional health and be that guide and coach like we talked about before, but your midwife or your OB, they are your medical team responsible for the medical care of the birthing person and the baby. So we don't catch babies per se, right? Doulas shouldn't be catching babies, and caveat, if you do have a doula tell you that they catch babies, don't, that's way outside their scope. Walk away. That is the responsibility of your healthcare provider, but the right doula, that's why I say find one that is reputable and trained and certified. They should be a cohesive team, part of that, your birthing team, but we are not medical.
Okay. And we're going to open it up for general questions in a little bit after we connect with Aubrey, but is there anything else that you might, Alyssa, recommend leaving with the Boppy viewers today? Any pieces of advice or tips?
Just like we mentioned early, start looking early, make this part of your plan. We hire experts for everything. We need to hire experts for this big, you buy a house, you build a house, your wedding, we plan so much and hire experts for all of these other things. And then we just kind of let birth and parenting happen to us. So consider your doula, your expert guide through this huge life transition.
Can't agree with you more. I think having a support squad is so important around you. And we do all these things as parents for everyone else, and we often overlook this important time period. There seems to be a lot of emphasis on the pregnancy, but not on the postpartum period, which is such an important period. Actually, for everybody in the family, I think people are coming to find and learn about. So thanks,
when I was
Alyssa.
pregnant, everyone opened the door for me, but when I was pushing a stroller through, nobody did.
I'm sure every viewer can relate to that. So that is very true. That's very true. And I think things like all these brands are working together to change that, right? To bring awareness to these important periods and trimesters in families' lives. So thank you so much, Alyssa. I know Boppy thanks you as well. So Aubrey, I want to move over to you. I want to talk about, well, there's a lot I want to talk about. I want to talk about exercising, specifically pre and postnatal exercises and things you can do to prevent certain things happening. Let's just start there. So would you talk a little bit about that with our viewers around what are some pre and postpartum exercises that we can do to prevent any mishaps from happening? And if we can actually through exercise.
Yeah. So, and I realized that when I gave my introduction, I failed to mention that I'm also a perinatal fitness coach. So that way people aren't like, why is she telling me these things? So, in general, the things you're doing before pregnancy, you can continue safely during pregnancy. The exception being like really high contact sports. I play soccer. My OB is fine with me playing soccer up until about the 13, 14 week mark. And then he's like, all right, let's back off, horseback riding, gymnastics, things that as your body, it's less about concern about the baby because the baby is very well protected. You could literally fall on your belly and the baby is going to be okay. And more about your center of gravity is going to change. So you're more likely to get clumsy and to have falls and spills. And all your ligaments are going to relax with that relaxin and progesterone preparing for birth. So again, things that you felt like you could do before, you might go too far or too deep or do something that then you get hurt. So that's kind of the restrictions in terms of why we say to avoid those exercises.
Can I just ask you a really quick question?
Of course.
I noticed, and I think a lot of my friends noticed, we're so much more flexible when we're pregnant. Can you share with us about that? Because I found myself like really kind of like overexerting myself because of this newfound flexibility. So could you delve into that for us? And some of the reasons around that?
So that starts really early on. And one of the first signs of that is the constipation moms get in the first trimester, because as your progesterone increases, it tells everything to start relaxing, including your digestive tract, which is why you have more trouble. And so that then takes place throughout the entire body. I can say as a mom of, several births that I noticed it quicker with each one now that my hips start to relax, and certain exercises that felt good prior to pregnancy within, I exercise pretty heavily throughout all my pregnancies. And I remember in this pregnancy, literally by the end of the first trimester, something like deadlifts with no extra weight, just like normal stuff, they hurt because I could literally feel my sacrum opening up and everything rotating. And so that's really, really normal. But as you said, you might find yourself being hypermobile and, I'll just do these yoga poses that I've never been able to get into before. Just because you can get into them doesn't mean your body is capable of supporting them, or that you won't then create an injury from kind of over stretching that. And that will get worse as you move towards the third trimester and your body prepares for delivery. And then especially if you're breastfeeding, lasts for quite a while postpartum. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, is that it doesn't just go back when you're postpartum, but that relaxin is still in your system.
So are there some hard do's and don'ts during pregnancy? Let's start during pregnancy and then move into what the healing path looks like post-pregnancy around exercising. Because I know there's a lot of conflicting guidelines and advice. And I always talk to my OB, but I would love to hear your views and see what you think.
Yeah. And so I will say it can be tricky because a lot of old school OBs are still very much inclined to treat pregnancy like it's a disease and that you need to be really cautious. Thankfully, my OB is not that way. He's very excited about me moving and doing things. The only hard no's are like those contact sports that could cause you to get hurt, et cetera. And then in general, we recommend not laying on your back for flat on your back for long periods of time, starting like mid-second trimester, just because the baby is not big enough that they're putting a lot of pressure and the uterus on a really important artery. And so it can cut off some blood supply. The reality is you're going to start feeling lightheaded and not good. So you're not, if you're laying on your back and you were just like, oh, I forgot, you're not going to hurt the baby. You're not going to hurt you. The other hard no's for me, for clients, are anything that they're seeing like coning, tenting, something popping up in their along the center of their belly, because that means they're not controlling their intra-abdominal pressure, and essentially the core is not working properly, and that can create that diastasis recti that we talk about, that ab separation. Or if they're feeling really strong like heaviness in the pelvic floor, or if you start to feel like you're going to pee when you're exercising, those are good signs that you're not controlling that pressure well, or the pressure is too much. And whatever that exercise is, it should be avoided, and that varies greatly from mom to mom.
Okay. And talk to me. Yeah. So I would love to hear, post birth. Like, some of us want to get straight back to it. Some of us don't want anyone to touch us. So what do you tell your clients about post birth exercise and like feeling good and moving your body again?
Yeah. So I always encourage my clients to start with reconnecting to their breath, which can be started literally within hours of delivery, if that's something you want to do, C-section or otherwise.
How do you do that? How would you
Yeah.
suggest you do that?
So that's something, with my clients, I work with them during the pregnancy, but the idea, it's called diaphragmatic breathing, or like that belly breathing. So we're thinking about sitting in front of a mirror and watching when you breathe, do your shoulders come up? Because if they do, that's wrong. And so we want those to drop down. And I often coach putting your hands around your ribs and breathing into your hands. The idea being that your hands should open up on all sides as you breathe and come back on all sides as you exhale. One of the cues is thinking about if you were wearing a corset, or if you were zipping up the middle. So we want everything to kind of come towards the middle. And these are great things to do during the pregnancy to help alleviate back pain, trying to keep that core from stretching more than it needs to, keeping the pelvic floor intact. But postpartum, reconnecting those tissues, connecting those muscles is really important. And so you think of your core as a box. You've got the pelvic floor on the bottom, your diaphragm on the top, and then you've got your transverse abdominis. So all these abdominal muscles. And so when you exhale and contract, the idea is that everything will go in and up. So the box is closing on all sides. And so that's one of the first exercises I have clients do postpartum, C-section or vaginal delivery. And then we can start building off that. So start that laying down, then do it sitting up, then do it standing. And each one of those adds a greater layer of difficulty. But that's kind of the first step before we would start moving towards any other more challenging exercise.
I think that that's such great advice, because not only does that help you like connect to your breath, it just is very calming, I find. What about, for the people that really want to like get up and move again, or they need to like break a sweat, what would be something that they could ease into postpartum that you would encourage someone to do?
Walking's your best bet. That's where you really want to start. And this will sound so funny, but I always recommend that you also be really aware of how much pain management you're using. I have clients that will really stay on top of their pain management, and then they overdo it because they're not actually aware of how uncomfortable their body still is. So I typically recommend keeping yourself at a level where you're not in pain, but you're definitely like, if you're moving too much, you're going to know about it, because otherwise you risk really overdoing it. But just going for a walk around the neighborhood really slowly, pushing a stroller, starting to get into some good stretches like gentle cat cows, just doing some of those things helps to reconnect and reinvigorate. And then how long it takes is going to depend a lot on the client, because if you were really active throughout your entire pregnancy, you're probably going to be feeling more comfortable and up for doing things. If you had a C-section or you had tearing, it's going to take a lot longer to even be comfortable doing that breath work without that causing discomfort. And so it's that timeline really varies.
Yeah. I know I'm a year postpartum with my second, and I noticed that like this time around, I had to work out a lot harder to kind of get back, and I'm not totally back. But do you find that with like each kid, it's very different? Could you share that with the with the viewers?
Yeah. Yeah. So I laugh about that because I exercised throughout all my pregnancies. I ate about the same throughout all my pregnancies. My first pregnancy, I gained what I was supposed to gain. I don't want to name numbers because that gets people so stressed out, but I gained what I was supposed to gain. My third pregnancy, doing nothing different, I gained 10 pounds more. Like it was a night and day difference. My first two, nursing, I couldn't keep weight on if I tried. Like I was literally eating cookies to try and keep weight on because I just couldn't. My third, I got done nursing her at 20 months and I was still like 3 to 5 pounds shy of my pre-pregnancy weight. So every pregnancy and every baby, every postpartum is so different. Even when you're doing the same things, those hormones are just different. We're older, our bodies are different. My first two babies were emergency C-sections, and my third was a VBAC. And I kid you not, my hips are permanently wider after having her than the previous two. I thought they'd go back. Nope. Like belts have to be widened. It has nothing to do with like weight, and everything to do with my hips are literally curvier than they were prior. And so those changes, exercise felt different. Things felt different the third time because it was a totally different experience. So I think being really gentle with yourself and not getting frustrated, like in that mentality of I've done this before, I should be able to get right back into it. Each one is an absolutely totally different experience.
I think what's something that maybe you've experienced with your clients and Alyssa too. It's like you have to accept the fact that like things are just going to be different, and like my body doesn't crave the same exercises it craved the first time around. This time around I'm more focused on like being strong and strength training, where with my first I wanted to do a lot of cardio at post birth. So I mean, I think it's so interesting because we really don't talk about how different the exercising experiences can be from birth to one child to the next. So if Aubrey, if I went to my OB, would they be able to direct me to a specialist such as yourself?
They might be. The thing that I often recommend starting with, if they can't, is asking them for a referral to a pelvic floor therapist. That's a great place to start. And the pelvic floor therapist may be able to give you actual exercises and workouts to do, but they're really a great place to start during and postpartum before doing anything else. I mean, your OB will basically look at you at 6 weeks and go, yep, you're good. And the reality is that you're probably not. It's really important that we kind of assess other things. And a pelvic floor therapist is kind of the best person to do that and determine if you are too restricted, too relaxed, where all those problems are, so that you can get back into exercise safely. And for many women, not go into another pregnancy being like, I mean, I still have this pooch, which is often that core never being properly re-engaged. So that's always kind of, even when I'm working with clients, I often will send them out to a pelvic floor therapist to get that extra guidance and that extra kind of checkup.
I love that. I actually did not explore a pelvic floor therapist in either of my pregnancies, but I do have a lot of friends who did because they were quite worried because postpartum, and I'm just going to be real and lay it out there. It's like you sneeze and you pee and you're not really sure and you don't understand where that comes from. So again, it's about, I think being educated, talking to experts such as you and Alyssa and engaging.
And I think I just wanted to note that one of the things I find really interesting about that is I talk with clients a lot about how there's a difference between common and normal, because moms will talk on mom's group like, oh yeah, if you've had more than one baby, you're going to pee yourself. Like that's normal. And I am quick to jump in and say it is common. It is not normal. That is not something that should be happening. And it does suggest there's a problem. But I think that a lot of women have gotten used to assuming things that are common are normal. And I see it throughout my practice that, painful periods, oh, that's normal. It's actually not, but we've all been, as women, we've been told that it is. So many women don't actually seek out guidance or help because they don't know that it's not a normal thing. So many people complain about it. They just assume that's the way it has to be.
And you're caring for a whole other being who is your world. And in that delicate immediate postpartum period, that we're not supposed to be worried about these amazing things that you guys do to support ourselves until someone kind of comes in your life and says how important it is that getting the support from either a doula or an exercise specialist, like in your particular field. Before we take questions from everyone else, I would love to hear, Alyssa and Aubrey, how your two services can complement each other and how a person could sort of draw down on both of you. So Alyssa, can I give that to you first? And then Aubrey, you could chime in as well.
Yeah, we love having fitness and health and nutrition experts. And then I love that you mentioned pelvic floor therapists, because we have an amazing team in our area that we refer our clients to. But as doulas, so in our agency, because we say we see people from conception through crawling. So you find out you're pregnant, you hire a birth doula, and during that pregnancy, part of our job is to offer our clients resources. So that's where you come in, Aubrey, right? Like, oh, we know this amazing fitness coach, Aubrey, here's her, reach out. So that's part of our job as doulas, is we offer resources. And then we're there throughout labor and delivery. And then you get into the postpartum part and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't normal. Sure. Our moms tell us just be ready to, pee every time, you'll never run again. And every time you sneeze, and I can't do jumping jacks anymore. And so we just think exactly like you said, we think it's normal. And this is what we're going to have to deal with the rest of our lives. So again, as a postpartum doula, then you say, oh, have you heard of a pelvic floor therapist? No. Okay. Let me refer you to some that we know and we've vetted, and we know they're reputable. So that's how we kind of offer these services to, not personally, but we find the resources for our clients.
Thanks, Alyssa. Aubrey, what about you? Would you echo that?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of my clients come from doula referrals or vice versa, that we've been, I'm very involved with my birth network in my area. And so I'll get texts from doula friends who are saying, hey, I have this client, she's got this going on. Could you help with that? Yeah, sure. Send her my way. And so, it's very common for us to go back and forth and kind of communicate about those things. My doula right now she's pregnant and preparing for her own labor, like literally this week. And when we've chatted, she's even asked me like, hey, do you have any recommendations for X, Y, and Z for herself personally? And so it's very much kind of that knowing where your skills lie and then finding the people who you trust to bring into that network. It's really about building a village. And so much of what the work I do is trying to build that village with my clients and knowing when to refer out versus when it's something I can do. And so we really complement each other. I mean, I was just thinking about all the different doulas that I have in my network right now, because we work so well together to get moms pregnant, keep them pregnant, and then support them in that postpartum period.
Yeah, and I think the thing I love so much about working with Tot Squad is it really is about building your squad, but it's also that like so many great providers can connect you with other great providers along your journey. Say if you want to do something like placenta encapsulation, or you want to do acupuncture, or you want to do something, whatever you want to do, it feels like everyone is just so well networked with someone that can fit whatever your family's like ethos is or mentality is in medicine and postpartum. Thank you guys so much. That's so great. And I just hear a common thread of like, we need to educate and support parents like all around. And I love that World Doula Week really, really does honor that. Let's go to our audience for some questions. Does anyone have particular questions out there? If you do, if you can pop it in the chat, that would be great. Otherwise, we will just kind of keep talking about everything. Alyssa, how many clients do you typically take in a year? I'm just curious, or how do you do that? How do you schedule your clients?
So we have right now a team of about 24 doulas, or well, not just doulas, birth, postpartum, lactation, sleep, and classes. So I think typically we're around the 100 births per year. And I wish I could remember our postpartum hours were like, I don't know, something crazy, like 45,000 or something. We had a lot of postpartum work last year when COVID started to finally, everyone got really freaked out by COVID. And I'm sure all of our businesses were affected by that. But once families, we were in this really weird thing where parents needed support, but then they were telling not to have people, told not to have people in their homes. So parents were just kind of like having to go it alone. So that was really tricky. But yeah, I think we hover around the 100 birth clients per year. Yeah.
Did you see an uptick in your business during COVID?
For births? Yes.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Postpartum went down just because of, not having people in their homes, but births definitely. And ironically, when the CDC put out their statistics, there were fewer births the last 2 years, but more of them wanted support. They were really nervous. I'm going into this hospital setting and I don't know what to expect. And part of our birth doula's roles really became helping them navigate that process, down to how many visitors can you have, what entrance can you go in, what are the protocols, can you leave? If your partner comes in and wants to leave and go get food, can he come back? Can you have a photographer? All the things. So really helping them navigate the hospital situation became a huge part of the birth support.
That's interesting because I think state to state, and I know country to country, it was very different during COVID, what you could and couldn't do. I delivered a baby during COVID and we couldn't have any guests in there. But I loved it. It gave me great bonding time with my second, but everyone is so different as to what they like. And obviously you've got to adhere to protocols, state by state. So Aubrey, same question for you. How do you tell us a little bit how you run your business and how many people you see approximately a year?
It's such a challenging question. I have my private practice, but I also consult for a couple of companies. And so I work with, well over 100 families a year, because I also work to do tube weaning support. So kiddos that ended up on tubes and how do we get them off of them? So I work for a company that does that. And I also do some telehealth work through a company that offers it kind of as like a benefit to employees. So I kind of rotate my time between all three and then my private clients. And my private clients are also
your kids.
And my kids.
And you're pregnant.
We also homeschool. So
and you homeschool.
It's even more fun. So yeah, it gets really busy around here. But a lot of my private clients are clients that I've seen to get pregnant, through the pregnancy, postpartum, and then starting solids. And so I will see them for over a year. And then sometimes those moms are looking to get pregnant again. So I have some moms that I really end up being with like year round for quite some time. So yeah, that load varies. And during COVID, there was an initial real ebb, as I think people got very nervous about whether their jobs would be intact. Did they have the finances for this, that sort of thing. And then there was I've had this huge surge with a lot of the clients, because a lot of people are kind of realizing like, okay, now's the time, or we need to take advantage. Or we saw a huge, and I'm sure Alyssa saw this too, we saw a huge uptick in home births in our area. And so I had a lot more moms being far more mindful about their pregnancies because they were more anxious about that home birth and wanting to make sure they did everything they could to prevent complications. And so I saw a lot more clients for that as well.
That's great. We're getting some questions around, I mean, one, we'll get to, I'll close with the balance question, but um, let's talk about savings and money and financial planning for these things. How much ideally, I mean, I know it's so, every family is different, but is there a guide that you guys use to like encourage your families to set aside money, and how is the best way to go about that? I know a regret of mine is I wish we had saved more in a kitty for our first, but do you guys talk with your clients about that, or talk about like setting aside a budget and money?
Do you want to answer, Aubrey, or do you want me to?
Sure. I mean, I talk with my I'm so bad at this because I end up being a provider that I know some providers that if you're coming to me for lactation, then that we're only going to talk lactation. And if you're coming to me for nutrition, we're only talking nutrition. And I am not one of those providers. I am a provider that if you're talking to me and we're supposed to be talking about you and you start talking about the baby, we're going to talk about that. And it's all going to be covered under that one service. I do accept HSA funds, which is what, I encourage a lot of clients to do. And I will talk through clients. Like I offer a free 15-minute get to know each other. Are we a good fit? And then we will discuss too, what are their goals and what part of that could I be most helpful with? So being mindful of if they feel like, I've got the trying to conceive phase, but I really want pregnancy support. Okay, then let's wait to talk until the pregnancy. And I try to also make it affordable in terms of doing payment plans and allowing people to pay in increments instead of all at once, because I really get how difficult that is. So usually I try to understand where the client is, and then we try to figure out something that will work for both of us, that I can afford to work with them, but they also can afford the money to work with me, and we can both make that support happen, because I always want to support women, and it's just a matter of kind of figuring out, okay, what's the best way we could do this so that you get what you need and we really prioritize the highest portion of that need.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why Jen came up with Tot Squad, was to give people affordable access to excellent providers. Where, there used to be this common myth that I live in Los Angeles, so services like doulas and sleep consultants can be very, very expensive. And there used to be this myth that you needed all this money. And now it's like you can text with a doula on demand, or you can come in for a virtual car seat check and do all these things in an affordable fashion, which I'm really grateful for. And I'm grateful, Aubrey, that you try to work with your clients depending on budget as well. And Alyssa, are you able to work the same way with like a parent if they just need a couple days of support, or how do you do that?
So for postpartum, yeah, it's a little bit different because it's an hourly service. Whereas budgeting for birth, it's just a set fee, pretty much anywhere in the country you live, whether it's 850 or 2000, even in our state of Michigan, from the east side to the west side, there's like over $1,000 of difference between the cost of a doula in one state. So budgeting for that's a little easier because you just have one lump sum, but postpartum support's where it gets tricky. So if you need overnight support, that's an hourly rate, and that could be 25 to 35, maybe depending on where you are, an hour. So think about asking for that kind of stuff on registries.
Yes.
They're really good things to have friends and family pay for, instead of, I remember being at a shower for a friend having triplets. So there was so much stuff, literally piles this high of blankets and stuffed animals and toys and all this stuff, when really this mom of triplets needed support. She needed so much support. And I'm like, looking around at all the stuff, adding up the dollars in my head, going, oh my gosh, this could be like weeks of postpartum support for this mom. So just thinking about that kind of stuff. But I mentioned that Becoming a Mother course that we teach, and we have a whole lesson in there where we go over all the budgeting stuff. There's so too much right now to go over, but all the factors that you have to consider when you get pregnant.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you really nailed it on the head there. I think again, it's like buy someone sleep rather than buying them the cute baby outfit. I mean, that is my kind of advice moving forward, or if they're hell bent on high on a certain type of feeding, like buy them that support and give them access to professional at an affordable price. We have some clients that are coming to us that are like, can I bundle? I want to bundle. I want to do like a bunch of different things for someone as a gift. So I love that idea of like giving it as a gift on a registry. Karen Gay has a question for you guys. How long do families usually use your services for?
So for us, obviously, pregnancies has a hard stop, and you know, when they deliver. We at Gold Coast, our doulas work through the first year. So some doulas will only work, you know, maybe the first few weeks or the first few months, but we do the first year.
Great. And Aubrey, what about you?
Mine varies so much on what you're coming to see me for. So I definitely have clients that we are meeting on a monthly basis, depending on what's going on. And then I have clients that wanted support specifically through a pregnancy complication. And then we're kind of, you know, on our way.
Great. And I'm getting a lot of questions about how do you both balance everything? Kids, families, jobs, husbands, partners. How do you guys do it? Are there any tips?
I will say that one of the things there's someone here.
So cute.
Setting boundaries has been really important. Like, you know, my husband and I work really hard to support one another. And so, you know, I see, and this is something I talk with moms about, I see a lot of moms who are literally trying to do it all without other support. I couldn't do what I do without my husband's support. My husband gets the kids up in the morning. I make them breakfast, and then I go work out while he has breakfast with the kids. Then I take them over when he goes into his office to do work. I schedule calls during my kids' rest times. My husband puts them to bed most nights, and I take calls in the evening. You know, we have figured out how to balance that, but it involves both of us communicating constantly on how to make that work. My mom also, the reason I'm here right now, not with children, is because my mother is here 2 days a week. My mom comes and she is retired and hangs out with my children so that I can take calls and get more done. And so, you know, it is a balancing act, but I think sitting down and deciding which things are the non-negotiables. My home is not a place you will ever come and go, oh, it's just so pristine. That is not something that's really important to me. I basically have the rule that if you walked into my house and dropped food on the floor and felt comfortable exercising the 5-second rule, we're good. Like that's my baseline. So for me, that's one that was negotiable. That was a priority that for some women are not, but for me, I was like, I don't care. That's fine. Whereas exercise or home cooked meals, those were non-negotiables for me. Yeah. So I think figuring out what those non-negotiables are and then working backwards is kind of the best place to start. And enlisting family help, friend help, your partner's help, so that everybody kind of can support each other in that.
I think you hit the nail on the head on a lot of those things. My husband and I always say, like, balance doesn't really exist. It's a situation where there's going to be days sometimes, you know, for both of us, we have careers and we have the kids and we love them, but there's days where like your career needs you more, and there's days where your kids need you more, and they need one of you to be there for them. And like you said, it's so much about communication, and let's not underestimate, it's hard. It's really hard. And so having that squad, having that support, having people around you, it does make a difference. And in my personal case, like, we don't have family close by. My husband's British. My family lives far away. So we're lucky enough that we have someone who lives with us and helps us. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I think it's like so important that like balance doesn't really exist when you're a parent. Like, you just, sometimes it's like day by day, minute by minute. And we're all just making it work. But what about you, Alyssa? Tell us a little bit about how you do it.
I second what Aubrey says. The word boundaries is the first thing that comes to my mind. Really being able to set boundaries, which is a skill. And if you haven't learned that skill, just do it. So, start with, if exercise is one of those non-negotiables, then at this time every day, no matter what, I'm setting this boundary that I don't answer my phone. I don't, the dog can't disturb me. My husband or partner knows that they don't come in here. Just start really slowly. And then secondly, asking for help and not feeling guilty about it. For some reason, moms, we feel guilty that if we can't do it all and we have to ask for help, that we're doing something wrong. We're not as good as, Sally across the street or, your friends on Instagram. Asking for help means you're a good mom because you're recognizing that you need help and actually asking for it. So those are the two main things for me. And the big things that I've learned. My daughter just turned 9. And it's been a journey, from thinking I'm super mom and I can do it all myself to really this year learning what it means to set boundaries and sticking with them.
I love that. I mean, I definitely have hard boundaries, hard stops. I exercise. There's certain things that I'm not willing to give up for myself now that I'm a mom of 2, or when I was a mom of 1, I would give a lot more. Right. And I did compare a lot to, and I didn't realize what was going on, that behind all these incredible women that we see, there are support networks. And there are women that work with them, such as you guys, such as doulas, such as exercise specialists that make it all come together. So I can't thank you both enough for joining us and joining Boppy today. I think your wisdom has been invaluable. Thank you for being open, sharing your hearts, giving us a little glimpse into your personal lives as well as your professional life. Thank you, Boppy, again for sponsoring this. And if you have not registered for the giveaway, please click the register button to register for the giveaway. And we want to just thank everybody for everything. Thank you again, Alyssa and Aubrey, for joining us. And thank you to Sarah and Natasha from Boppy, and from Tot Squad, Alana and Chrissy for supporting us with this very, very special webinar today. And thank you guys so much for everything. See you soon. Thank you, ladies.